We're going to give it about 1 more minute, guys, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into our small business survivalist webinar on using body language in virtual meetings. And all right. Hey, Rachel, it's good to see you. Thank you for turning video on. I really appreciate it. And Pappy, it's good to see you too. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to do some introductions. For those of you that have been on this series, you know who the heck I am. And I am actually just very excited today to be able to introduce you to Alison, who is, I think she's got one of the most fascinating jobs on earth. But I happen to be a body language and like neuro-linguistic programming junkie. So, and give me 1 second, because of course I skewed away from the one document that I needed to be able to read right now. Okay, so Alison Henderson is the owner of Moving Image Consulting, and her entire practice is built around being able to give her clients the kind of presence that they need to be able to communicate effectively in any circumstance that they may find themselves in. A lot of us are doing, you know, not just Zoom meetings, but Zoom presentations and Zoom sales calls, and everything feels different. I think a lot of us depend on being able to feel other people's energy. And I hear that a lot, especially from my sales students, that, oh, I can just feel it when we click. And I say, cool, how's that working for you now? Right? God bless you. We love that gut instinct, but we're in a time where we critically not only need to be able to effectively use our own body language appropriately, but be able to read other people's body languages. And so Alison is going to take the first part of our session and share with you her more than 2 decades of teaching and training movements and the strategies that she's developed and proven for how to impact and improve your body language signals, and be able to pull some of that information from the other folks. And it's so exciting to have her, because not only is she like one of those really cool people that got to do or that's done a TED Talk and has all of these credentials that she carries around, but she also works with a really interesting group of people. She works with a lot of people that are in finance and law and in the events and hospitality industry. And if you can imagine trying to get is it the Illinois CPA Association to truly engage in what an accountant's body language should be like, you can understand that she's had some uphill battles and obviously had some great successes. So Alison, I'm excited to turn it over to you.
Great, everybody. So I am thrilled to be here. That was a fantastic introduction, and I am right there with all of you as far as the panic of needing to pivot when March 21st hit, because instantaneously, I'm like many of you, all of my speaking engagements, poof. There were several contracts that I was in negotiation for with companies to do training. And of course, because they were expecting me to be live, suddenly I am, no, it's okay. We can still do this virtually. Let's figure this out. Let's have a conversation. You know, some of them are ghosting me and not calling me back. Some of them we did switch over. And then the new opportunity to be with you today and many of the other companies or associations that I suddenly connected with during this time, because they're eager for this information. They're like, our members, we still need to provide for our membership, and what they really need is Zoom help, virtual calls. What are we doing now? So today I want to just cover a couple of things and then really open it up to questions where you unmute yourself and you throw a question out there. Or I would love to, if anybody's willing to say, yes, give me a quick scan, or let's have a quick conversation. Let's do some coaching. Let's make this really valuable for you rather than just showing slides. So I decided I wasn't sending any slides over because this isn't a super long webinar. You can always connect with me and we can always do this. And many companies now are finding, wow, I can bring this training into my team, but then I can also share this webinar, or we can get all of our clients on it too. So there's a lot that we can do in this kind of setting now, because if they have clients all over the country or all over the world, they can still all get on Zoom together and learn together. So the opportunity is really out there for you to still be working a lot with your clients. So the first thing that we need to talk about is the actual environment, right? The square makes you equal to everybody else's square. So if you are the executive in your company and you're on a Zoom call with them, the normal signals that you had of where you sat around the table in the conference room or standing up to give your presentation automatically gave you status and automatically gave you people to focus on you. Now, as I said, everybody's little squares the same, and you've lost that. So as the leaders in your organizations, your own executive presence still really has to come through the screen. And I have a whole online training just on virtual executive presence because it's so important. So the first thing you're going to want to do is look at your environment. What's your background? Do you look executive based on where you've even chosen to sit for the meeting? And Marie's got a great example. She's got the logo in the background. I went and had this little guy printed. It should be bigger, but I was like, oh, well, when it got here, it's like, oh, I should have. But at least, you know, the branding is there, and just so it's subtle. But particularly if it's a sales call, not so much necessarily for your team, but when you're doing things like that, you may want to provide a background for your team. And that way, everybody, no matter who they're meeting with the company, there's a consistency there. And it may help the people that you're working with too, if you're looking at their background going, oh, are you getting on like this with your clients? Because it's really messy back there. Or that really, I love that painting that, like, normally I'm sure it's great in your house, but now it's conflicting. Like, I can't watch you because of all the business going on around you. So there's a happy medium. You still want to ground yourself. So I see Jennifer has a lovely map, something behind her, and the door frame. That's actually, if you notice, the door frame, because of where that edge line is, it's actually pointing right at her. So even those subtle things of, like, if you have something or a molding or something that just happens to come into the corner and be pointing at you, those little subtle things are fantastic in your environment. One hack that I give people is, if you have, by chance, either a TV tray that you can walk around that's got the legs on it, or I use a black music stand, you know, those old fashioned ones that you'd turn them flat. And if the lighting isn't good where I'm at, or I want it to have a slightly different background to it, I like kind of take that around my house and I try to figure out where I need to be, because then the desk doesn't matter. You have a movable desk. If your actual office space isn't great, and I'm in my living dining room right now, because my actual office is also the kids' toy room, because when they were gone at school all day, it didn't matter. So my desk is the same place where their video games are, not working so much now during COVID. So I usually am out here and letting them, you know, go off when they're done with homeschool. So it may not be that you're in an office even. So choose the place that you look the best. And one of the other things is lighting. So I have an additional light that is in front of me. You want your lighting to be in front of your camera as much as possible. Otherwise, you end up in silhouette, or you can be very shadowed. You don't have to go out and buy a separate light. You don't have to do those lovely round ring lights unless you want to make that investment. But it is important, and I would encourage everybody to set up a Zoom call, because they have the free version, with a coworker or with a trusted friend, a family member, and test things out. If you have an important project coming up, you would normally practice, or you would set up the conference room before the meeting, right? Because it's an important client that's coming in. Or if you have to put your foot down with your team for some reason, you would prepare. And the same thing with Zoom. We need to prepare for that. So we look at our setting ahead of time. And it may be that your morning light, today's really cloudy, even though I'm sitting next to a window, I'm getting no additional light from that right now. So it's really good to have an additional light source to help to illuminate yourself. The other thing I'm sure you've seen, so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it, is lifting up your computer and trying to put yourself a little more eye to eye with the other people on the call. That can be important, because otherwise, if it's too low, you're looking down into them, and then they're looking up at your neck, which isn't so great, right? Unless we're doing a really good job of moisturizing, we probably don't want people staring at our neck or up our noses, that sort of thing. And the other thing can happen too, if the computer is too high, then you look diminutive, and you don't want to shrink in the screen either. So, and the more eye to eye, I have my laptop on just a small stack of books to help keep me a little bit more eye to eye. So that's kind of your environment. I would take your cue off the other people on the call, but err on the side of moving back as far as you can to where you don't look like you're not joining in the meeting. But sometimes the just heads, depending on how long it is, or if somebody puts it on speaker view, and then every time your head comes up, it's really big in their screen, and any facial expression that might not be the best, because maybe you're on mute and you're hearing something going on in the other room, and you really want to go take care of that, whether it's an animal or whether it's a child or something during this time of stay at home, you're going to have some flashes come across your face, no matter how much you try not to, of like disgust or grimace or worry about what's happening somewhere else, and that's going to be really big in the screen. And then suddenly everybody else on the call is wondering what's going on with you, like, oh, what did I say? Oh, okay, she's unhappy. What just happened? And it very well may not have anything to do with them. So the little bit more distance helps with the pressure of every facial expression being so important. So if everybody is really smack up against the screen, you're not going to be able to scoot back a whole lot. But I have my mouse on a separate little table next to me, so I can still control things on my screen. And if I would need to type, I would need to come up closer. But I personally like to leave things a little bit more like a coffee shop meeting. It has a little bit more of a relaxed feel versus we're in this meeting. We don't live day to day invading people's personal space like we are on Zoom. This is a new weird phenomena in our brains. That's part of the Zoom fatigue that happens with our brains, is that we're staring into people like this close all day long. And the more we can, if you can relax that with your clients and help them relax too. If it's a one-on-one, I think it's fine to say, hey, you know what, let's keep this a little more casual. Could we scooch back just a little bit more? I want to be able to see more of your body language. Because what happens is, and this is kind of getting into the physical presence now, is I feel like there's either busts, like statues, right? This is all we see, like those little busts of Beethoven and Bach and things that people have on their pianos. We only see from here up, or we have bobbleheads. Like we have the over movers, and you're like, wow, I wish they would calm down and like find a happy medium. So that's really your goal, is to be between the bust and the bobblehead so that you're still giving off nonverbal behavior. Problem is, the only thing we have is this much. We don't get the lovely context of a normal conversation where we can see pressure is really different through the screen. A lot of us use pressure through our rear ends in our chair, or gripping arms of chairs, really subtle things that you can look for, particularly in a sales call or in a group meeting, to how people are reacting. You can look to how they're using pressure, or if they want to hold their ground or stand by their price. Give the clue to the team as to what they want you to focus on. Usually we do that through pressure signals. first I want you to do this, and then I want you to do this, and then we're going to go into here. And there's extra pressure that we see, because usually it's more subtle than what I'm just demonstrating. But through the screen, that's why I have to make it that big, because otherwise we're not seeing that. Some people use pressure through the head, and they're kind of headbangers, and you can see that. But there's an awful lot of us, or that use really lightweight pressure, and we can't get a good gauge. It's the same thing that Marie was talking about with the energy level. You don't get a good sense of that energy. And the other thing that happens that might be throwing you for a loop a little bit with your clients or your coworkers is that our energy levels actually are lower through the screen, because you're going from 3D person to 2D on the screen. And so if somebody, one of your clients, or if you're interviewing somebody and you're like, wow, I'm not getting anything, they're so flat, I don't know what's going on, and you start to panic a little bit because you feel like they're totally not engaged because there's nothing happening. They could be gesturing all they want from the waist. They could be down here fiddling on their legs, and you can't see any of it. So you have to remember that there might be something going on, or give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt that they're a little bit more engaged than you may be giving them credit for, because of that energy level. You can model it, however, for your team, and you can also give your teams and your coworkers that tip of, look, you need to have, your posture is so important behind the Zoom call screen, because the minute you come down or you relax or whatever, and with your teammates on a regular call, it may not necessarily matter. But with your clients, or when you're leading the meeting, you want to lead by example and give and have that good posture, have that same executive presence you would in the boardroom through the Zoom screen. And if you're sitting in a big, huge, comfy chair, black chair, and then you're wearing a black shirt against a black chair, don't do that, because then we can't see you. It's like you've disappeared. You always want to pop off your screen. Jewel tones are great for Zoom calls. But so think about your own energy level. Right now, I'm kind of feeling like I'm at that energy level of like talking to 50 to 100 people in the room kind of thing, because I want to make sure that I am animated and you are getting nonverbal signals from me. I tend to be more animated anyway. I was a theater major after all in my first life, but the more animated you are, that also gives permission for others to be animated, and gives them permission to show some body language signals. So your shoulders are super important. I encourage everybody to warm up their shoulders in the morning before they get on their Zoom calls, and people are like, what? I'm like, well, if you do a yoga practice or something, concentrate on the positions that are warming up this area, because you need to encourage it to show more body language to others, because this is the signals that they're going to see. And the good thing about Zoom is that this connection of spine and shoulders and gesture, that's where collaboration signals come from. So you can actually look warmer and more collaborative sometimes on screen, because this is where collaboration, the warm fuzzies, come from. The problem is, if you're really stiff and you're not showing off anything, then you're not showing collaboration if you're stiff and you're not breathing. So you have to breathe, and you have to use your shoulders. Encourage your team to engage their shoulders, particularly if they don't tend to gesture up here. Women do much better on Zoom, I have to say, because we tend to gesture from higher anyway. It's a deficit in the boardroom, because then people think we're being more emotional, we're being too emotional, and we're gesturing higher and higher and higher, and that's like danger signals, or like Kermit the Frog, and they think we're getting all shrill, ladies. But on the Zoom call, the fact that we do gesture a little bit higher is to our advantage, because then they can see our hands. Remember, we don't trust what we don't see. And so people tend to they worry if they feel like if there's no palms ever in the in the conversation. So find a moment where you can keep the upturned palm and show that, because that's a really great signal, universally. And the more you can engage those shoulders and spine in, that's really great. And it's just, you have to get used to it. You have to get comfortable with a little bit more of that tippy forwards, backwards. Because we don't see pressure, the other tip for you is to show importance of something, use your proximity to the camera. the closer in you come, the more important something is. It's like telling a secret to the others on the call. So if there's something that's more important, I would encourage you to come in, because anytime there's a change like that, everybody's like, oh, okay, here's an important thing. Here she comes, right? So you know it's important because she's getting excited and she's coming towards the screen at me. And if that's one way to help tell your team what you really want them to focus on and what you don't. Because normally, so if we're doing a lot of that through our pressure signals and we don't see those, use the proximity as a way around that. So yeah, I wanted to tell you about shoulders. I want to tell you about that. Oh, the little final thing, because I know we want to open it up to real live people, is the communication piece. We're not mimes, right? We're not only going to be giving body language signals. Hopefully there's a verbal component to this. And to be aware that not only should your verbal and your nonverbal be in sync, if your words don't match your actions, they're going to believe your actions, whatever signals they think they're getting from you. And if you're not so confident and you're nervous on Zoom, I'm starting to work with a lot of clients that are like, look, this Zoom thing, I don't feel like I'm me. I don't look like me. How do we make it look like me? And so I've been doing a lot of one-on-one calls, just little tweaks of, okay, you know what, keep breathing, relax. You don't look as bad as you think you do, usually, as well. We tend to be a lot harsher on ourselves. And when during a meeting do we get to watch ourselves? I mean, isn't that totally wrecking our mindset? So there is the option, if you don't know about this on Zoom, to hide yourself. So if you want to just make sure at the beginning of the meeting that everything looks okay and your lighting's all right, and you want to take your picture off of that, you can do that, so that you don't have to stare at yourself the entire time while everything is going on. Post-pandemic Botox fun. That's good. I like that in the chat box. I do feel like we all are going to be going for, I finally get a haircut on June 1st. I'm so excited. I called texted my stylist. If you're open on June 1st, I want to be one of the first people. So communication piece, sorry, tangent. The verbal, you're going to need to be a little bit more explicit with your words, meaning intentional about them, to make sure that your team is clear on what their next steps are. A lot of that extra clarification or priority and things would come at the end of a call or a meeting, at the end of the meeting, when you're getting up and you're gathering your things, and there's that little bit of chit chat at the end of the meeting where somebody says, oh, remember you were going to send me that phone number, could you not forget to do that? And oh yeah, let's set up that next meeting so that we can make sure that we do XYZ. We don't have that time anymore. We get off the call and then all of a sudden we're like, well, shoot, I didn't set up this and I didn't do that and I didn't do this other thing. So we need to be a little bit more intentional, I think, at the beginning and the end, to set the agenda so we can keep the meeting shorter. And if it will help that speaking over each other, if we set who's going to kind of speak in what order, can be helpful on your Zoom calls if there's a lot of people and everybody tries to get a word in edgewise. Because one thing as a leader, don't on Zoom say, so what do you think? There's 3 or 4 seconds of silence and then everybody starts talking at once, right? And then it's, oh no, you go, oh no, I'm sorry, no, you take it. And then there's this extra 20 or 30 seconds before somebody really talks. So as a leader, go ahead and even tell them, to save that, I'm going to start calling out for different people at different times, or give them a heads up if you want to. I would like us to talk about this particular topic, or we're going to discuss this particular client's agenda or proposal, and I would like I'd like Marie to go, and then Rachel, right? So you can pick people out to go in a certain order. We can help that kind of silence and that overlap of things. And then at the very end of the meeting too, let's do a quick recap. This is the thing that I would like us to tackle first. This is going to happen second. Remember, this report needs to be in my inbox by such and such. It will help your team so they don't feel like they're following up with a lot of emails to you. Everybody's worried about keeping their jobs right now. Everybody is worried about being productive and being a team player and giving. So we have a couple things going on. We have a lot of extra check-ins that maybe aren't necessary because they want to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing because they're at home. And so we're setting up all these extra meetings, all these little check-ins to make sure that you know that I'm on it, I'm doing my thing. But you can also help as a leader, help everybody by giving them really specific instructions of what to do. And then maybe you don't, as manager, get all these extra emails proving the the worth of your team. You're like, I love you. I know we're doing our best. Nobody's furloughed yet. We're doing good, right? But it's hard to believe that. It's just the back of our mind, or that's the first question everybody asks you, right? Every neighbor, every relative is like, so how are you doing? You know, have you been furloughed yet? Have you been, right? I'm like, why are we asking these questions? So, help there. That's already going through their mind and help put them at ease. So is there anybody that has a question? First of all, unmute yourselves. Or has a funny story about Zoom that you want to tell, or want me to look at your background, or those kind of things.
I know that Shelley had a question.
Oh, in the chat, yeah.
And so, and I wanted to make sure that we were actually able to show her that. So Shelley was asking that if you are on Zoom and you hide your video, is it going to hide it from everyone else as well?
No. I need to figure out, I'm trying to remember.
So actually, if you go into your video, if you hover over your video, and I can't show you my Zoom screen to show you the process.
Right, it's in the three little dots, right?
Video, and there's two little blue boxes. The box with the three dots, the very last option is to hide your self view.
Yeah, so everybody can even try that right now. You can see it. So the little blue, the dot, next to the mute, if you go into there at the very bottom, it says hide self view. So you can do that for yourself. I've also heard of people that create a like a square that they move around to cover their face, or they take a Post-it and they put it over where they're showing up on their screen. I'm like, well, there is hide self view, so but it may be that if they didn't know that.
And then if you would like to come out of that hide self view, what will happen is at the very top in the bar above that's black, it'll say like reclaim self view or something along those lines. It's got a little eyeball next to it so that you can see it, so you can come back on. And trust me, don't get that box confused with the stop video box if you have to yell at your kid while you're trying to homeschool and run the world, because you will definitely still be seen by everybody else. Yeah. So are there any additional questions that we wanted to have for Alison before we move into a little bit of the psychology of body language and influence? No? Can I get some good body language telling me that
we're good?
You hear me?
Move on.
Awesome. So, a lot of the things that Alison was touching on are so incredibly critical when it comes to our ability to influence. And that's really what the power of communication is our ability to influence. If you're one of my students or one of the people that's been on a lot of these calls with us, we talk about the breakdown of influence in communication all the time. It's 7% words, 38% is tonality, and 55% is body language. If you're not mindful of your body language and how people are perceiving you, you have automatically lost more than half of your ability to influence the person that you're speaking to. So I want to open this up and talk a little bit about some basics from neuro-linguistic programming and some deeper psychological pieces that are either going to freak you out or get you really excited, and I am okay with both. Are we ready to dive in for that kind of experience? I'm going to pull you into my screen and ask you to forgive a little clutter as I go into presentation mode. So oops, excuse me, I grabbed the wrong screen. This is not a 44-page presentation. We would never survive. I want to ask a little bit, and if we could open up the microphones, I would love some feedback on this. How many of you do watch yourself on video when you're doing your presentations and talking?
Oh,
I do.
I
Yeah.
have, but I started blocking myself out.
And what kind of things come up for you emotionally as you're seeing yourself on that screen, besides like, oh, that hair is out of place, or you realize that you're doing this because you're old and you can't see what's on the computer screen?
I'm saying I'm cute.
Yeah, looking adorable today, right? Might take it down later. Don't know. There are a lot of pitfalls and a lot of advantages to being able to actually watch yourself speak to people over the next few months. The first thing is that it's going to cause you some self-consciousness. And that's just what it's going to be. I would love to say that there's a trick around that, but for the very first time in our lives, we're having to see our own faces tell stories. And one of the immediate detractors is that it starts to slow down your executive function, your ability to be able to speak as quickly, as succinctly as you normally would. And it can be a little jarring. So if you notice yourself, and we talked about this with Katie Gore from Speech IRL, but if you notice yourself starting to not find the words or start stumbling over the points that you're trying to make during a conversation or presentation, that is a beautiful time to hide your own video and be focused on the other people. But if you have the ability to take this opportunity to say, I've had this amazing experience where I actually got to see myself over and over again, and there's some things that I could possibly realign for what's going to happen when I get to see humans face to face and in the same room again. And so I want to give you some frameworks that are going to help you identify the things that are going to be working for you, what the impacts are, and then things that you can start to use now to amplify the tools that Alison gave you and help you feel more connected to the other people that we are speaking to. So now for reals, I'm going to pull you into share screen, I promise. So we need to talk about your face. I loved the movement of everybody suddenly discovering RBF, like it was a brand new thing, that if your face wasn't expressive, you were automatically categorized as a certain kind of woman, because we all know what that is, right? We are the ones that get told to smile. It increases your face value. And people have expectations of how women express themselves. And your face is going to be giving a ton of signals that your body might be lacking during this time. So I want to talk to you a little bit about presence, your ability to connect, and your trustability in this process. Because especially if you are selling via Zoom, and I'm going to say it again for all of my wonderful salespeople out there, you should be selling. If you are not selling right now, you are doing a disservice to the world. Get out there and make sure people can use your services and use your talents to make their lives better and easier right now. But we've got to build those relationships almost from nothing right now sometimes. And a lot of that is going to have to do with the experience they're having in 2 dimensions. People look for meaning in the interactions that they have. And they not only need to understand what it is that you're saying, but they need to feel like you are on the same page with them, that there's a commonality that's there that they can connect to. Because let's face it, we're all feeling a little disconnected right now. right? There's a commercial out there that talks about how do we make sure that we're not emotionally distancing while we're socially distancing. And a lot of emotion is communicated through your body language and your tonality. It's great to get that note from your cute fella that says I love you, but boy, is it better to hear it in person. And trust me, it's even better to feel it, right? And we don't get that in the same ways that we used to right now, and we're all craving it on a very, very just kind of human level. So we all learned about the 6 basic facial expressions pretty young. And when you think about how we evolved, right? We started out with only being able to express ourselves through body language, which is why it is such a critical component of how we communicate now. And as the Cro-Magnon man began to go through that evolutionary process, we started to add grunts to the communication that we were doing. And so because we didn't have the words, we had the body language and the tonality to be able to make that impact. And it's only in the past short span of the overall history that we've actually layered words on it. I'm going to assume that nobody is going to be this dramatic in your Zoom meetings unless it's me or Alison, or you have really messed something up, right? But there are some very subtle pieces to how you can not only position your facial features, but read the facial expressions of the other people that are on that call. And you guys hear me beg over and over again, please turn your cameras on. Please turn your cameras on. I do that so that I can see if you are making possibly the face in the middle while I'm talking, or if I have completely lost you at some point, it's going to be there. And that is one thing that I would like to encourage you to do. I know that we're all still waiting for our Jane Jetson mask to put on to make us look perfect every time the video camera turns on our computer, and it's not there yet. But your facial expressions are more valuable to the conversation than a lot of what is going to be said. So you got to show up. There are some more subtle cues that we need to be working with right now that are going to be a little tricky. For those of you that have had theater experience, you know what stage right and stage left is and how everything gets turned around. But when we're talking, especially when we're going through some of the education that we do about neuro-linguistic programming, which is the subconscious basis of hypnotherapy and how we can get down to some deeper levels of communication, the way people's eyes move is going to tell you a tremendous amount about where they are in their experience. And I'm going to make sure that you guys get a copy of this, because I know that you're not going to be able to remember all of these right off the cuff. But if you're in a sales conversation and you're talking about what could be for your business, the person is not across from you is not necessarily going to continue to make eye contact with what is now literally just a tiny dot and no longer your real live eyeballs. They're going to be having a more internal experience. And what that allows for is a lot more eye movement than we're used to. And so when people are looking dead at you, they're in the moment, or they're at least pretending or wanting to portray that they're in the moment. But, and this, again, this can be a little tricky. We hope that we don't, that they've got their camera mirroring on so that it's reading appropriately. But if they're looking up and to the right and you're painting a picture, you can be sure that they're actually visualizing what it is you're trying to create for them. If they're looking up and to the left, they're visualizing a past experience. For those of you that are educators or that are speakers, you probably know a little bit about the learning styles of audio, visual, and kinesthetic. Those kinds of learning styles and ways of processing are going to become really critical in our communication now, especially for those folks that are visual and kinesthetic, because we've got to be able to put them in a space of connecting immediately with what it is that we're saying. And this kinesthetic expression of understanding or presence is also going to help you move them in a direction. So if we're thinking that, okay, we know that if they're looking up and to the right, they're having a constructed memory, your body language can actually pull them up and to the right if you're wanting them to move into a future tense. Conversely, just like if you were on a stage, if you want to take somebody back into the past, you really should be leaning to or walking towards the left of your stage, which the stage is a lot. We used to worry about having what we call the postage stamp stage. This is way smaller than our postage stamp, ladies and gentlemen. But you've got that ability to move them back and forth in their mental context of where they're going by simply moving your eyes or moving your body in that direction. If you notice that their eyes are pulling down, it's still going to be past and future, but that means that they're actually experiencing the feelings or emotions that they had or that they will have about what it is that you're discussing. If they're looking towards their ears, that means that they're remembering what they heard, or they're picturing or experiencing hearing what they want to hear on the other side. And I don't know about you guys, but I find that stuff tremendously cool. And for those of you that do have meetings with me, I know that you're going to be entirely creeped out from now on. I'll take that risk to be able to share that information with you, but keep track of those cues. Make sure that you're keeping those connections with people, because it's going to allow you to get a lot more in line with where they're at. The other thing that we want to look at is the power of mirroring. Mirroring is a, oops, I did not mean to go that direction. Excuse me. Hold on. Nobody saw Obama. We're still on the same page. Mirroring someone's physicality and tonality is going to indicate to them that you are on the same page, that there is a likeness between the two of you. And this can be tricky because we know that we need to be able to emote and use our body language to influence. But if you have someone on the other end of that screen that is a very soft-spoken person and is not using any of their body language, and you are all over in your beautiful flower of a self, expressing all the way across that screen, chances are you're going to feel aggressive to them, even if that's not your intention. It also gives you an opportunity to build trust. Alison had mentioned earlier that being able to lean forward and lean back when you are making points and building that relationship and wanting them to focus, that also works for helping to build trust with that person. If they are not close to their computer and you can tell that they're sitting back in their chair and you are all up in their grilled cheese, again, you're encroaching on what is their virtual space. And even though it's not a physical space barrier, virtual space feels the same to us. And so take a moment to read where they're at in their positioning. And you always want to be sitting up appropriately and not looking like a slouch, but make sure that you're not becoming over the top while you're pulling those things together. Because what happens is when you are on that same page, you achieve limbic synchronicity. And that's just a really cool, flashy way to say that we are totally vibing and we're on the same page and we could talk for hours and not notice that time had gone by. And hopefully you can remember having that experience in your pre-COVID life where you just hit that flow and everything seems to click and you feel like you're on the same page. There are some great studies out there that talk about the power of limbic synchronicity, and I'm going to be sharing some of those with you in the post documentation. But the mirroring part of our communication becomes critical, because as we become on the same page, we want to be in agreement and move forward. Honestly, at the end of the day, we want to be liked. And if we're sitting across from somebody that feels like us and we feel like they get us, we are much more likely to want to engage in what it is that they're doing, saying, or the path that they're going down. And so I have one example that I want to share with you. There was a study that was done with it was a small group of unsuspecting panelists, where advertisers had actually gone in and had conversations with them, and in 50% of the group they mirrored, and in the other 50% of the group they didn't mirror. And then they put them all back in the same room and let them do, the focus group thing and chat while everybody was watching from behind a mirror. Not creepy at all. And they noticed that, okay, everybody kind of went back to their own behaviors, that they started to mirror each other a little bit to try to create some group synergy. And they had one of their advertisers come back in. And when they walked in the door, they immediately dropped 6 pens. The 50% of people that had experienced mirroring in the previous conversation, 4 of them got up to pick those pens up off the ground. Why? Because they felt like they had a connection with that person and they wanted to continue that connection. And they, on a subconscious level, believed they were friends. And that's really what it's about. When we're talking about things like building trust and building relationships, while we don't need everybody to be our business best friend, we do want them to like and trust us. And so hopefully you were able to grab some little points from the conversation that we had today. I haven't seen any questions come through the chat box, but we are going to go ahead and open up here at the end. And I would love to hear either a question that you have or an aha or a spark moment that you were able to take away from today's conversation. So we're going to go ahead and unmute. Kate, was there anything that sparked for you during this session?
I enjoyed the just the connection between you and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name.
Allison?
Alison, yes. It just seemed like to fit so perfectly. So I like that a lot.
Not practiced either. This was
right off. It's theater, kids. We're dangerous. We're absolutely dangerous. Rachel, what about you? What did you take away from today?
I don't know. I'm already back at work, and I am trying to. It was always the subject that interested me, and I'm trying to read the body language at work, which is very different because I'm in Israel, and Americans are understood differently. So it's like the last week I caused a ruckus, and I do marketing for 2 different parts of the companies, and I'm like, okay, I want to know if it worked, and he's like, I don't care about that company. And I was so shocked. I turned around and walked out. I didn't say anything. And an hour later, I realized I was like, okay, they read that body language like
you were dismissing them, and not that you were overwhelmed, but that you were dismissive of what they had said.
I was like, okay, he doesn't care. I don't care too. So I walked out. So I was like, okay, you don't care, fine. And
yeah.
they were like, I don't. you dismissed me, so I guess I mirrored his word, but they misread it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. And listen, if there is anything that we can do to support you or help you into, did you say you had already started your next position?
It's the same work, same job. Yeah. I'm
Okay,
almost there for 1 year. Yeah.
cool, good. I
But
was
also, guys in Israel, they think like that just because you're like hi, and they're like, oh, okay, I won't get you in bed.
yeah. Well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
there is a lot too of your body language allowing you to appear more mature and more grounded in those professional scenarios. And it definitely, it takes some practice and it takes some focus. And luckily, Alison is doing a lot of work right now in doing just custom 1-hour sessions where she can help you in different body language scenarios so you can plan to be able to have the kind of impact that you want to have. Because Lord knows it doesn't happen by chance. Shaylee, were you going to say something?
Yeah. So I had someone who was coaching me on speaking, and definitely a big reminder about the body language thing, because I had been writing workshops after workshops with like the focus on like what's wrong with my, like what way should I organize my content to get people to like stick with me here, or like in which people like my workshops. It's just I'm realizing like I need to, instead of putting the emphasis on the content, I need to put the emphasis on how I deliver the content. So it's a reminder, and I'm hopefully gonna get better and better.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and listen too, you know that if you ever need a practice friend, I will find some time. Uh, we love to teach presentation, and especially, you know, layering your tonality on top of that. I found that one of the most powerful things that we can do, especially when we're looking to make a big point, is to actually just slow it down and
huge.
quiet it down. And if you have an audience in front of you, you will literally see them lean forward to listen. Because think about when your mom used to scream at you versus when she used to get in your ear and whisper very concisely what the hell was about to go down, right? Completely different impacts. All right. So recommendations for,
Mary, can I say something, please?
yes, absolutely.
Okay, first and foremost, thank you, Alison and Mary, for having this. I'm very big on body language because I'm not really a hugger. I'm not a hugger. I'm Sri Lankan, so we kiss on the cheek. But I do that only to people I like. You know, if I don't like you, I will take a step back.
Good to know, Pappy.
I'm very well, you know, distance, the 6 space, you know. So when people barge in that, it's like really, really difficult. But I like the things that you said. And also you spoke about when you look, your eyes go left and right. And that's a wonderful indication, because I have a lot of friends who say, you know, I don't want anything to face left. I want things to face right because I'm moving forward. And the things that you spoke about today, both of you, were like fantastic. And thank you ever so much. I did take a lot of things that I want, because I want to change. I want to be a speaker as well. I want to be out there. I want to be powerful. I want to have a powerful message, and to have people engage with me and connecting. That is so important, because I love relationships as much as I don't like hugging people. I love to have a lot of relationships and connecting with people. So thank you.
You can like the humans and not touch them. Totally okay. And then Awati is asking if we've got any recommendations for engagement, like polls or exercises in Zoom chats. And there are a lot of ways to use those tools. My caution in recommending them wholeheartedly is that they can often be more of a distraction, or feel like almost like a teacher checking up on you to make sure that you're there. To be honest with you, the most effective tool that I've found to keep people engaged, especially when you're doing content-based webinars, is to make sure they have food. So we have lunch delivered to their desks right before the webinar starts, because if they're eating, they're not surfing They're not doing something else. And it was like the simplest idea ever. And there's a company out there called Eat Engage that that does it on a national level. We just send out Grubhub cards and make sure that people have lunch delivered, whatever they want, and then they're there. Watch them munch and crunch. Who cares? But keep them focused and keep them with you. So for those of you that have been with us for the last, what, Michelle, is it 9, 10?
This one is 10.
This is our 10th Small Business Survivalist webinar. We are going to take a little bit of a break because 10 webinars in 10 weeks with no notice has definitely been a lot of content to produce. We will be putting these up not only on our YouTube channels, but on our Facebook so that you've got continued access to them. And you're going to get your email by 12 o'clock that has the video of our session today, as well as some follow-up documentation. So know that that's coming for you. But I want to make sure that each and every one of you know that if there is any way that we can be of service, whether it's an ear to bounce an idea off of, or a check-in to make sure that you're still sane, @Revenue is here to just be of resource. That is our only goal. We want to make sure that as we go through this, we all come out breathing happy and hopefully with wonderful companies that are continuing to make progress and profit. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close out our session for today. Thank you so much for your time, your spirit, the energy that you've brought to these meetings. And just know that we're going to be following up. We're going to make sure you get what you need. Thanks, everyone.
Can I ask a quick question about